Hey guys, welcome to ZACK Creations, and today I'm going to teach you how to draw a Digital Breakaway style font using the name ZACK. What you first want to do is kind of plan it out in your head, and you have to first build like the structure for it. So what I'm doing right now is creating a basic simple graffiti style font, doing the Z. I want the Z to go all the way under the letters, like an underline type thing. So I'm making it really big with the bottom line of the Z going all the way across. So let me just do it there. I like to do little soft strokes first, start off and look at it and make sure I like the way it looks. So I'm just tapping, moving, making a basic shape of the Z. And like all this underline. I'm not gonna finish the underline because I don't know the spacing for my letters yet, so I'll do the end part of my underline when I get to it. But let me just make the line all the way. I think it's gonna be long enough, but again, just leave it open at the end, and we'll start on the A. And they don't have to be all lined up. It's graffiti, so it's gonna be jaggedy, crooked, a little bit, but still simple. So, one letter is gonna look bigger than the other. For example, I decided to make my A look fatter, I guess the word would be, than my Z, because the Z is kind of being stretched out. For the A, I like making my A's like this. It just looks really dope to me. Real simple, nothing to it. Because with this base that I'm doing right now is just framework. And like most graffiti styles, you really just need a good base, and then erase that. And then you can decide what you want to do. As long as you got this pencil in your hand, like I do right now, it can always be changed. You can always erase it. So C's for me without guidelines are a little harder, but with this particular style I'm doing right now, I kind of want it to be more free-handed, not really knowing what direction I'm gonna go until I put it down, and then you can adjust it, make it look the way I want. Kind of think this looks a little wonky. See, I'm gonna just curve that in. I think this should be a little bit more rounder. The top could be a little more rounder, a little symmetrical, a little sharper. It looks a little too wonky for me, and not in the type of wonky I want it to look like. Inside looks sus. Then I'm just gonna erase all this extra stuff, my first initial lines, and erase all that extra. And then touch it up, darken the parts I like, leave the parts I don't like loose. So I'm fine with the outside. This inside part, I need to touch that up a little bit. Have the curve look, yeah, it's a little fatter. It was a little too skinny for me before. I want a little more thick. Kind of matching up with the A a little bit, but still kind of off to itself in a sense. Because this is gonna, you gotta remember, this is gonna end up being a breakaway front. So everything has to look like it's kind of falling apart. in a sense, or falling away from each other. So it doesn't really matter what angle you kind of draw the letters in. You can have more fun with it than I'm doing right now. But I want you to see exactly what I'm doing every step and letter with them being semi-straight. K's are so much fun. Again, doesn't really matter. Like they're going a little up. This one going a little down. Then you draw your little K arrow, I like to call it, and connect everything together. Now, see, the K was a little over, so now I'm going to fix my bottom line. Carrying it all the way over. And what I'm doing right now, you can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm drawing little squares, rectangular shards, which I'm going to add to all the letters, but the Z's at the bottom is kind of the framework for the letters, so I just want to add a bunch of them to give more of a breakaway look, but I want them in a cluster closer to the Z and then start to fall off later on. And a little bit more. Erase that. Don't like the way that looks. It's a little too pointed. Going for more rectangular break off kind of look. You don't have to go into too much detail here like I'm doing, because when you put the black ink over it, you can do more finessing. The next thing you want to do is kind of shape off what the chunks you're gonna break away off the letters. So I chose to leave the Z more so intact since it's further, and start off with the A. And just draw little cubes, in a sense, corner cubes in the right side of the letter or left, depending on where you're breaking away from, or top or bottom. And that's gonna be the guide for where to stop when you're doing the rest of the shards. Do the K. Fix the paper. I'm not going too far in with these because I still want you to read the actual font. And like I always say in my personal life, with letterings, you always want the word to be legible. That clearly says ZACK still. You clearly see it. Take away those pieces, and you see ZACK. Now I decided that I'm gonna use the black ink to do the rest of the work because it's just simpler that way. So just trace out your basic line like I'm doing right now. Try to keep it as straight as possible with the lines is what I'm doing, but you can always go crazy with them. It just depends on what base you decided to use for your lettering. If you was doing a cursive font, be curvy, but since I did a straight, more blocky type font, I want my lines to be as straight as possible. The lines that are the basic framework for the letters. Again, trying to keep it as straight as possible. Where I drew off my block lettering, I'm going to leave that blank because when I get back to it, it's going to be a bunch of shards and it's going to start to break away. But up until then, I'm going to just focus on keeping the actual frame of my letters straight, clean, cut so that there is an obvious separation between them and the shards I draw later on in the piece. Now, this is the part where you look at the frame and look and make sure this is exactly what you want it to look like before you start to add in any more detail as in when it comes to the breakaway, the virtualness of it, or the style you're going for. This is the part you're just going to sit here and look at it for a minute and figure out, make sure this is exactly how you want your piece to look. So now I'm going to start doing the more tedious part, and that's going to bring this whole piece together and add my little squares, rectangles, and parallelograms and shards to make this piece really, really pop. I'm going to time lapse me getting into it, and I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see I clearly did all of my closer breakaway pieces inside of it, and it looks like it's falling apart perfectly. So the next step would just be to erase all of those pencil marks and extra stuff that's all over it, and take a look at the finished product and see what I like, what I don't like, if I want to add something, if I want to take away something. Just erase all those extra guidelines and pencil marks that I created in the framework for this lettering piece. All extra stuff. And as you can see, I didn't go as far out as the actual letter because it's falling apart, so they wouldn't be there. So it's nice to have that space to add more depth to the piece. And that's how you draw a graffiti style breakaway font. Thank you for coming. Have a nice day.